Got an awesome episode for y'all today, and we're asking the question, doing the study, did Cain, son of Eve, who was cursed from the surface of the earth, as it says in Hebrew, who was cursed from the face of God, did Cain enter the underworld and begin communion with a serpentine race, who the Indians call the Naga? And in the Indian mythology, they run all seven lower bottom, and especially the bottom rung of the underworld. They're known by many different names throughout the world. We've been chasing them down the past few studies. We can also find them in Greek, known as Echidna and Typhon, that we've said a lot about and have a really good episode developing on that. And we can also ask the question, did this race pass on what we might know as angelic information? Was this where the mystery cults were born? Is this the origin points of the cults that use humans as sacrifice? Today, I think I'll be answering many of those questions and more. For instance, in the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament, Cain isn't merely a wanderer, right? He's described as groaning, trembling, cursed in body and soul, cursed to the land of Nod. The land of Nod could be read not just as a wandering place, but as the land of groaning, mourning, and shaking. Why? Because the surface of the earth itself had rejected him, been cursed on his sake. Remember, Cain spilled the blood of his brother Abel onto that very same ground. The ground received that blood, and from that moment forward, it would no longer feed Cain, produce fruit, no longer bless him. He was driven from the face of the earth itself, as the Hebrew clearly says, forced, I believe, into the underground. And as many legends, even ancient Jewish lore, says the same thing. All right, and just to show that real quick, the Targum Jonathan on Genesis is a Western Targum, or translation of the Torah by the Jews, by the ones they say that were closer to the land of Israel, opposed to those who came out of Babylon. I don't know enough to say either way, but I do know it's old, and I do know that right here it says, and Adam knew Eve, his wife, who had desired the angel, and she conceived and bare Cain, and she said, I have acquired the man, the angel of the Lord, thinking that Genesis 3:15 was going to fulfill itself and the first generation, and she added a bear from her husband, a desire for her husband instead of desire for the angel, who would have been like Samael, or basically who with the angel in control of the serpent, or the serpent was a Satan. I don't know 100% specifically. Even who she had was Abel. Abel was a shepherd of the flock, but Cain was a man working in the earth. And what I mean by that, well, state right before that is there's a spirit over the serpent. I don't know if that, the serpent and the spirit are one, if you catch my drift. So moving on. To dwell with whom? Who lives down there? Is according to the Indians and others, Greeks and many, many others around the world, the Thai people, the Cambodian, and so on, to dwell with the Naga. So the offing of his brother Abel led to a curse and to communion with the entities of the underworld. And here's where things get even more interesting. This idea that spilling the blood of humans opens the way to supernatural power from the underworld. It seems straight out of the cult of Baal and Moloch. I think this very sin, whatever happened with the serpent and with Eve, and the reasoning behind Cain being the first murderer is he was the first serpent seed. So I think that seed, that sin, that bloodline of Cain created and led to these mystery religions of Baal and Moloch, as you see developed later on in the Bible. It might even be describing them. So ancient worshippers believed that human sacrifice gave one access to our blessings from spirits of the underworld, what we know as the Rephaim. That blood can open a connection to the realm beneath. So Cain offed Abel and was sent away from the face of the earth, as the Bible says, underground. And even in modern occultism, the same dark truth is whispered. Blood as a key to wealth, power, and communion with the spirits below. The same belief is also tied to the fallen dragon myth of ancient lore, who rules this over silver and gold of the dirt and the treasures of the underworld. Were all these mystery religions, were these evil things, the occult, was it originally brought forward by the Naga in conjunction with angelic fallen angelic powers? per se, the 70 over the nations now, or whoever was set over before that failed miserably, codenamed Watchers. So were these taught by the Naga, and is there a Cain bloodline that is or was hybrid human and Naga? So today we're going to get into that and come full circle and show who Cain might be in the Indian mythology. So I hope you got your buckles fast. We're going to go over a lot of information. It's going to be coming through fast, and this episode might end up being long. So save it for watch later, save it to favorites. We're going to be diving deep today. So God bless you. God bless this study. Let's go. Let's start the show. All right, I'm Zach. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that intro. Hope you got excited about that. I have an extremely interesting, awesome episode for you today, filled with very in-depth info, difficult to find information that's very beneficial, almost necessary to know multiple mythologies to figure out who these characters are pointing to. So today I hope you enjoy and hope you get something out of this. So let's start today off by getting hints from the Bible. I love to start with the Bible. I believe in the Bible. I'm a Christian. And find through the Bible what these Nagas are. Let's see if the Bible has anything to say on these entities. And as it turns out, right here in chapter 3 of Genesis, so 3 chapters into the Bible, we practically begin the Bible with a talking serpent creature with limbs and intelligence. Genesis 3, that serpent. So the fourth character introduced in the Bible, you got God, Adam, and Eve, and then the serpent. The fourth character is Mr. Serpent, right? And so him being walking, talking, highly intelligent, crafty, serpentine is literally a Naga by definition. So as we see here, Genesis 3, we'll click on 1, get to the Hebrew, right? Now the serpent was more cunning or crafty than any beast of the field that was created or made by Yahweh Elohim. Yahweh, I am that I am, Elohim. So I am that I am, the great I am of the Elohim. And he said to the woman, so the snake starts off immediately speaking to the woman, meaning he has a mouth, right? He tricks Eve, or he convinces Eve, which means he has a mouth and intelligence. So intelligent enough to convince Eve to eat that forbidden fruit. Whatever that act was, all three of them, Adam, Eve, the serpent, were cursed in one way or another from that act. So the serpent, so how we see that the serpent wasn't just a slithery snake, is he's literally cursed in his ability to move. So as we see here, scroll down a little bit, the curse for the serpent. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all the cattle. You're cursed more than any and every beast of the field. On thy belly thou shalt go, and dust thou shalt eat all the days of thy life. So that means he was not stuck on his belly crawling with his mouth open to the dirt. That means he was walking and talking as the pictures of the Naga have been showing us, as Echidna and Typhon and mythologies around the world with these dragon-like characters, the Chinese, Jade Emperor, Yellow Emperor, Dragon, the celestial dragons, right? As the mythologies of the world continue to point that there is most likely another set entity that is now stuck mainly underground, and as we'll see later, has shape-shifting abilities, or still has, right? So he's cursed to crawl on his belly, meaning that he had limbs and a mouth, and you could speak cunningly, and had intelligence, like we said, just hammering that in. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground. We're going to focus on these Nagas. We're going to connect these ancient stories powerfully to the biblical curse of Cain, who was cursed to be away from the presence of God and away from the presence of the face of the earth, which indicates to us that Cain was banished from the face of the earth. So looking at the biblical aspect of it, we'll see that Cain was literally cursed from the surface of the earth, banished down, and it ties into tons of world mythologies. We're going to focus mainly today on the Indian, and so the Bible's going to give us the starting point, which will lead us into the underground realm known in Hindu or Vedic, Mahabharata, Ramayana, is known as the Patala, the lowest level of the underworld. And a fun little fact: the underworld, the man who the one of the seven rishis, the Septa rishis, one of the great seven sages, Atlantis sounding fellow. Okay, he started the race of the Naga. His name is literally Kashyappa, and this is Patala. So the name of our FBI director is Kashyap Patel. The literal head or the generator of all the entities of the underworld's name is Kashyapa Patala. So just extra A or two in there. So I found that very interesting. So you'll see there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going to be popping up in this episode. So let's keep diving in. I have something fun for us to look at. Pull it up here. Here's a fun little chart with multiple entities that are similar to Nagas in other mythologies. The Echidna we've gone over a lot. The founder, the first king of Athens, had a lower body of a serpent, upper body of a man. That giant serpent that supposedly Apollo slain around the time of the flood, and that way he took over the prophet's oracle of the pagan religions. In Mesopotamia, that little dragon serpent of Marduk, he seems a little bit smaller, but maybe Marduk is just massive. We got the Chinese long dragon, which is really fun. We'll get into a little bit of that today. Quetzalcoatl, who sometimes was fully man and sometimes was a feathered flying serpent. We have Egypt, which is tying in quite nicely also into India. Check out this connection that Praveen Mohan made. And then I found, because the Indian religion is so similar to the Zoroastrian religion, both made by the IndoAryan people back in the day, they also have very interesting stories on the dragons. This entity here sounds remarkably like Ravana and ginormous sea dragon. Okay, so if you want to look through that, the benevolent and dangerous. And then so the same thing like Indian you can compare with the Viking religion, and they have opposite god sets. So one side worships the Asura, the other side worships the Devas, and that's like interesting, ties into Asher, interesting ties into Asgard. Okay, and then also Iran seems like it separated its religion. So whereas India loved the serpent, all their gods are related to the Nagas, Iran turned the snake symbol into a symbol of evil and chaos, which makes sense. But let's get back to the Bible and develop from there. Flip with me to Genesis 4, the curse of Cain, and which we've spoken about in previous videos. Cain quite possibly being the literal child of the serpent, the child of Satan, the serpent seed theory. Check out my other serpent seed videos for more information. Here, Cain, the firstborn of Adam in this chapter, becomes, surprisingly, the first killer. Adam is a direct son of God. He was directly made by God, making him a direct son of God. Adam has no father but God. Only one on earth like that except for Jesus Christ, the second Adam. And somehow, Cain, the son of Adam, ends up a murderer. Why is that? Well, this is just more evidence pointing to the seed line war between the serpent and the woman found in Genesis 3:15. But to our point, let's read verse 10 through 16 and then dive into how the Hebrew points to Cain being cursed from the face of the earth, tying him into the underworld realm of the Nagas. "What have you done?" replied the Lord. "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed and banished from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield its produce to you. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." But Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, this day you have driven me out from the face of the earth, and from your face I will be hidden. I will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." "Not so," replies the Lord. "If anyone slays Cain, they will be avenged sevenfold." And the Lord placed a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. And we're going to be focusing in greater detail. Okay, I got the on the earth highlighted in orange because we're going to show that word also, and more likely, and more often is used for in the earth. And within Cain's punishment, he says, and this is literally pene, from the face of the surface of the earth, and from the face of God. So he's not allowed to be on that realm, the realm we're walking on, right? So above us is the realms of heaven, 3 heavens, and below us is the realm of the underworld, right? Cain is not able to see the face of God, and their understanding of where the face of God is in the heavens on his throne. Even our understanding is such. He looks down on the world as if we're grasshoppers, the Bible says. Okay, and Cain's not going to be able to see the face of God, the heavens. And why is that? Because he's also driven from the face of the earth. And we're going to dive into that and see what the Hebrew literally says on that. So when we do that, let's pull up the Hebrew where it says on the earth. Okay, when you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. A fugitive, this is interesting, right? We're going to get into this later too. Nod is the word wanderer, but it's also the land of Nod that he went to, Cain was sent to. And then we'll see that it has many more meanings than just wanderer. All right, so we see here where it says, you guys see that where it says on the earth, okay? But it starts with, so this word is eretz, which starts with aleph. Or is that aleph, right? Starts with aleph, okay? But here it has B beforehand, so bet. And what does that mean? All right, it means in something. I am in the building. Okay, when it's used as a prefix, it means in something, by something. Okay, it could also mean on, but we can also say it's in the literal earth. Let's back that up and go back to verse 14, where once again it says, driven from the face of the earth. Okay, hidden from the face of God, like we said. Let's look at the Hebrew to drive this idea home. Surely it says, you, O God, have driven me out today from the face. So like this is like Peniel, the face of God, right? It's the name of the place that Jacob named the spot because he beheld God, right, and didn't die. From the ground, the face of the Adama, right? Adam is one of the words. So we had Retz for the earth, and Adam is literally like the dirt or the ground, right? It can also mean the color of the ground, right? And he's hidden from the surface, or hidden from the face of God, and he's cursed and driven out, right? Driven away from the face of the earth, pointing to him possibly being, sent, cursed into the inner earth, which is what we're going to be developing into. So when we pull up that word to hide or hidden, it means to be absent, keep close, conceal, hide, kept secret. Okay, so that makes sense. So he's hidden from the face of the earth, which is very interesting, to say the least. So let's use what we just learned about the Bible to jump forward into mythology and see if and where we can match that up. But before you do, what do you think? Was Cain cursed from walking the face of the earth? Is that what you see in that? Go and check it out. I use BibleHub.com. Gives me a lot of tools if you like to use that. Let me know what you think. None of the plants would grow for him. Remember, God said it would be cursed. The ground would be cursed for his sake, Adam's sake, right? And just like the serpent who was cursed to crawl on his belly and eat the dirt, Cain over here is cursed to live under the dirt. Spiritually, his bloodline ends up more times than not taking their spirit, their body to the underworld instead of to God. So both Cain and his probable daddy, the serpent, were cursed from enjoying the fruit on the top side of the earth. And so, interesting side note that I want to take a deeper look into some other time, but we'll take an eyeball at it now because it's just wild. We're going to go from biomythology, keep it interesting and keep building upon one another. Let's check this crazy story out. So here we are. Check this out. So we have a winged lion hybrid dragon, right? And one day, so this is in Chinese. The Jade Emperor is the ruler over heaven. I can't figure out if that's their god or not, because it could be the ether, which is the prince of the power of the air, or it could be God Almighty. I don't know. Haven't done that research yet. But anyway, he punished a winged lion dragon hybrid who one day violated heavenly law in one of two common ways. So pause. Let's look at this winged lion dragon hybrid. If we were to go into Isaiah 6, the seraphim angels, right? In Isaiah 6, the seraphim angels are floating around and even above, crazy enough, the throne of God. Seraphim is a Hebrew word coming from seraph, fiery, burning serpent. So fiery, bright, illumined, flying serpent is the picture that you get out of that Hebrew word, seraphim. And here we have an entity who's in heaven around the court of the Jade Emperor, which is probably God, right? He violated that law. How did he violate that law? Well, in a very interesting ways, as we see here, offended by knocking it out on the palace floor, which probably wasn't his best day, and he stole treasure or food from heaven's storehouse. Interestingly enough, he got struck on the rump, and in some versions, he got sealed shut. In others, he just received the decree. They didn't tell you exactly how it happened. It was just decreed. So interestingly, again, the lion itself, so the winged lion dragon hybrid, the lion is one face of the four-faced cherubim. And I believe the heavenly serpent, the heavenly dragon, basically the seraphim is the higher order of the cherubim. It has the addition, most likely, of that serpent face and features, which probably in reality and metaphorically relates to shape-shifting, relates to camouflage, subtlety, craftiness. So here we'll find an interesting side note that takes us back to the sin of the garden, because the curse on this heavenly dragon is to now could only ingest wealth. It could never leave its body, and it turned it into a symbol for attracting and keeping riches. So where exactly are all these treasures found? Literally in the dirt. So we have a dragon in Chinese mythology cursed to eat the dirt. Where in the Bible do we have a heavenly dragon eating dirt? Cursed to eat the dirt? Genesis 3:14. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock, all beasts of the field. On your belly you will go, and you will eat the dust all the days of your life. That's very interesting connection there. So once again in Genesis 4, Cain's cursed to live under the surface of the earth, out of the sight of heaven. We have the serpent having been cursed, let's say 20 years previous to this, before Cain was born, probably right around the time Cain was conceived, okay, cursed to crawl on his belly and slither around, and his home be in and eating the dirt. No longer able to stand, let alone fly, if he did have wings. And then where did those wings go? And so as we scroll down here, verse 6, where did the serpent go? Where did Cain go? Even more importantly, it says here, to the land of Nod, over and against Edom, which is Eden, not Edom. Okay, Eden. Let's look at the Septuagint version to find something pretty interesting. Let's find out and check the Hebrew on Nod itself. And so the Septuagint is going to look a little different for us. It doesn't just say that he's a wanderer. It says he's groaning and trembling on the earth, because that word for Nod also points to groaning and trembling, woe or mourning, all right, in that land of Nod, which is why I have those highlighted. So when we go to Genesis 4:16 and we look at the word for Nod there, let me get it a little bit cleaner for you. All right. We'll look at the land of Nod. Yeah, it's a proper name. It says vagrancy. But the word origin, as we see down here, is from N-U-D. Okay, so remember the fact here that we're at 5113, Strong's Concordance number, and it's just going to take us back 3 to the root word. So what I did is I clicked on the root word here, which is, you see there in the left yellow, nude. Click on that. Take us to the actual root word. Okay. Nude, which means to bemoan, flee, get, mourn, make, to move, take, pity, remove, shake. Okay, so this land of Nod, land of nude, right? It doesn't have to mean wanderer. It could be a place of removal, place of shaking, a place for being sorry, even a place for skipping for joy, depending on the context. So the context is Mr. Cain being cursed. So I doubt that he's skipping for joy into this land of nude or Nod, however it is properly pronounced. So as we go over it one more time quickly, the surface of the ground is cursed for Cain. It refuses him, refuses to feed him, bless him, because he spilled his brother's blood. All right, earth received it because of the action. Cain is cursed from that same surface. Right, he spilled the blood of another and then was welcomed into this land called nude or Nod, the land of wandering, shaking, moaning, trembling. And what occult action does this remind us of? The cult of Baal and Moloch, who taught that spilling of blood of humans leads to rewards from underworld entities and spirits. As they say, it gives you reward. And as we know through modern devil worship and witchery, and as we've seen even earlier with the fallen cursed dragon of Chinese mythology, the one over wealth, silver, and gold, eaten through the dirt and gained through the underworld, right? You receive reward from this fallen dragon, seemingly. The other similarity between Cain and Moloch is that this action opens your connection to the underworld and its spirits. This seems like quite an answer to the riddle as to where exactly did Cain go, and how was there already a city? And who did Cain mate with? And where did his knowledge come from? If we want to think deeply on it, consider Gary Wayne's hypothesis that Cain and then his son, the Enoch of Cain, right, was the founder of the mystery religions, as per Gary Wayne's research and hypothesis. We don't have to totally rely on Cain and Enoch communicating directly with angels for everything. In this way, and in some ways, the curse of Cain opened him up to communication with a different set of entities. One of the main ones being the Nagas, as we're going to research deeper into here soon. So did Cain and Enoch, or originally Cain, enter the underworld and enter into communion with this underground serpentine race? And did this race pass on the angelic information that we've heard about and seen in many cases? Okay, so this is where the story starts to get really crazy. Let's look at the land of serpents from the other side of the world, India, the land of the Nagas and Naga temples and worship. Their religion is completely filled with Nagas and Naga gods, Naga children running around the earth accepting worship, living in the earth. The great snake sacrifice and the first and the beginning of the Mahabharata, right? All the children of this this great rishi of the 7 rishis, right, or Nagas. One of his female had all Naga children. So let's check this out. This is going to get crazy quick. All right, I told you it's going to get crazy. Let's make it crazy. I'm just going to go through and just throw whatever comes to my head as far as this section is concerned, and I'm going to end on something extremely crazy. It might be difficult to make an episode on. I didn't know it existed. I was finding paths and weaving tapestry of this idea that's going to pop at the end. I didn't know that it would just throw itself at me like it did. But anyway, so we'll get there. Here's the Nagas, right? So they're very commonly portrayed as human bodies, snake tails, as we've gone about. They're called divine, semi-divine, race of half human, half serpents. Okay, like I said, from the Mahabharata, the Vedic traditions, all throughout Cambodia. 95% of the Cambodians believe that their lineage goes back to the Nagas. I think it was a Naga queen named Soma, right? The same Soma is the elixir drink of the Indians of the Mahabharata, that the gods, the Asuras, and the Devas use a massive snake to churn the ocean of milk, right, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that produces Amrita and a soma-like mixture of immortality. All right, so that's the name of this goddess or Naga serpent who started Cambodia. And the netherworld is Patala, like we showed. Okay, Kashyapa is the father of most of these. I don't think I see him right here, but we'll get there. Is the father of the Nagas through a female, and that. Oh yeah, he's the father. Kashyapa is the father of the Nagas who run over and run the Patala realm. So Kashyapa Patel literally kind of points to the head serpent of the underworld, which is an interesting and probably a fitting choice for the head of the FBI, right? And importantly, they can occasionally take human or part human form and are depicted that way in art. They're also known as, interestingly and importantly, dragons and water spirits. So we're not going to go over a lot of that in this episode, but that's very important. That's going to relate us back to Echidna, the mother of monsters. That relates us into the Greeks, into like the nymphs, the sea nymphs, the river nymphs, right? They're going to have like snake tails, water spirits, possibly the Rephaim, right? Their dead spirits still going to have this body form. Female Naga is called the Nagin. I found some really cool traditions, right, where they're literally were found. They drained out two different lakes. I think we're getting to it right now. Let me wait till we get there. They're in three forms: entire humans with snakes on the heads and necks. Okay, Nagaraja. Naga, the snake, Raja meaning king, is a title given to the king of the Nagas. And these communities right here, the Sri Lanka, okay, that's where Ravana was at, and that's where you see the temple with the massive, what look like Tyrannosaurus Rex feet, big three-toed reptile feet, at the head of this massive temple, and only got like from the ankles down, so God only knows what entity was standing there, but it was a reptile for sure. So Sri Lanka was the land of the demon, the great demon of the Ramayana, what Rama was against. The Khmer is the Cambodian people. They comprise 95% of Cambodia's population, as was said, and here's are some ruling classes that say they come from the Naga, and this is not all-encompassing. There's many more. Naga is a snake, most often depicted by the cobra. Here we have Fanin, right? And then we have Ufanin, as one of my commenters said in one of my last episodes. Tied that in. That's very interesting. Ufanin. Right, then you also have Tanin, which is the serpent, the great sea serpent found in Genesis 1, the great sea beasts, or beasta, that God created. Sounds very much like that in Genesis 1. The word Naga, right, is kind of interestingly and sounds similar to Naga to the Hebrew Nagash, Nagash, just an addition of the sh sound at the end. Indo-European is a hairless, naked animal. So it also ties into naked, and they were naked in the garden. Just a lot of ties in here, which is why I'm reading this through. And trust me, it's going to get real interesting, and then we're going to jump back into the Bible. In some regions of the Himalaya, Nagas are regarded as the divine rulers of the region. And they seem to like valleys as far as land masses are concerned, and bodies of water, right? So both in the Nilamata Purana of Kashmir, right? A lot of religious background to Kashmir, and Kathmandu, right? Go to Kathmandu to get yourself up to Everest. Very cool. All right. Both these areas have mythologies where there were lakes, the mountains broke, you know, whether it was Indra breaking Vritra, the serpent. These lakes and dams busted out, and the place where this massive body of water was in the Himalayas, in the Himalayan mountain range, okay, was filled with Naga serpents. So you wonder where this religion comes from in that area. They literally tell you they drained the lakes out, boom, or, you know, the dam busted of natural earth broke out, and it left the Nagas. And so there was Nagas in these areas still, which seems to be post-flood stories. It could be pre-flood stories. And let's see what we got here. Their domain is the enchanted underworld, the underground realm filled with gems, gold, and other earthly treasures. It's called the Naga Loka, or the Patala Loka, which indicates the lowest level, often associated with bodies of waters. This is where you get like your Greek sea nymphs and stuff like that. This is where you get the Ganges River. The Ganges goddess came up out of the river, right? And had the hero Bhishma, who was a main hero in the Mahabharata, as some type of sea nymph, right? It doesn't say she was Serpent. And a lot of these stories don't seem to point out these females' serpentine features, whether it's because they're shapeshifters, some type of magic enchantment. Nakash, or Nakash literally means a diviner, an enchanter. They're literally shapeshifters by nature, serpents, okay, and they're the highest powered serpents. Even these gems, one thing I skipped over is that in the Patala Loka they have gems that shine and have light that's attached to their body, and you'll with antlers on it, and you'll find the same story in Native Americans of North America, United States of America, where you find me sitting. Is they have the same story of snakes with antlers and gigantic gemstones on their head. So tell me why those in Japan and China and the United States of American Indians and the Indians, that's almost encompassing the world. But I can do a couple more searches and find snakes with antlers and emeralds in their head in the parts of Europe or Africa, right? So it's very interesting how easily and quickly it starts tying together, and saying that there's some kind of truth, there's something truthful about this. We did talk about the story of churning the ocean of milk. It's a very interesting story. It seems to be highly philosophical. A divine idea is you do need a competing. You can't if all was one, it'd be one, right? There has to be an interlay, an intermotion between good and evil, which there is. Very, very interesting. So I think I'm going to skip down. Okay, here's where we find it. The Mahabharata is the first text that introduces the Nagas, describing them in detail. The cosmic snake, Shesha, right? We'll see this guy is like a axis mundi, a world tree, just like the serpent in the garden, represented by a tree. We're going to see that Shesha, this cosmic serpent, is literally is like the next level of the cosmic tree. He connects the very tops of heaven. Well, I guess it is a cosmic tree, down to his tail being in hell. Okay, and on him sits their high god named, I believe it's Vishnu. Naga Rajas, Naga Kings. Raja is king. Naga, of course, is the snake. And here's where we get kind of crazy, and you realize that there's a lot of history you just don't know about. Anatta is an entity who has 1,000 hoods and is clearly bedecked in swastika ornaments that are devoid of impurities. He illuminates all quarters by thousands of jewels on his hood. And Anatta, I think, is their great serpent of the underworld. And he is covered, I guess, in swastikas, which you could really run off into an interesting study on that. Why is that not coming up? The cosmic serpent. Okay, it's another word for Shesha, who we were talking about there, which is that cosmic tree, that cosmic serpent, the king of all Nagas, and a devoted servant of the god Anatta. Okay, yeah, that same serpent that you'll see Mr. Vishnu reclining on while he's floating on the cosmic ocean. So when it says God was upon the surface, and the Spirit of God hovered upon the face of the waters. Okay, interestingly here we have a God floating on a snake in the waters. A snake whose head reaches heaven and tail reaches the lowest level of the underworld, very interestingly enough. So you could run off. I'll probably make an episode on that. I mean, you could just really run with that. That is wild. It puts the occult objectives of the Third Reich into an interesting view. How much do they know that they were searching? They knew that they were searching for, and what they do with that castle they had. They were doing blood magic, the occult SS. Okay, they were searching after keys and secrets of the underworld. Crazy. This stuff is coming together crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and tie this episode in. Let's make it all come together. and show our objective, which is Kashyapa and his relation to Cain, with the objective being building on the next episode, because as you're going to see right here, it really starts to expand. It really starts to show something interesting with this character Kashyapa, with the mythology of the Indians. Seems to be better detailed, where we can get more access to some of this ancient information, although obviously some of it's a little skewed, a little wrong, from the wrong viewpoint a lot of times. But it all works together to show us the truth, and it's matching up in many ways with the Bible. So I have here pulled up for us Google, and this is the chart of Kashyapa, his parents and his children. So multiple spouses, multiple children, kind of like Zeus, but this entity is not, it may be Zeus. Let's check out and see. So interestingly, first of all, his parents. It says Marichi and Kala, his mother. Now when we start to look at Marichi here, he's a mind-born son of Brahma. We have an interesting pictures here of him in blue, as you see there. And as we pull it back and look at other things involved with Marichi, so Brahma will be a four-faced creator, god of the Indian pantheon. Four-faced, just like the four-faced cherubim once again. And here we have the Buddhists are calling this name Marichi the goddess of the dawn. So it's an interesting thing. So we have this this blue, in some aspects blue, creator god Marichi, father of Kashyapa, but we have him known in the Buddhist tradition as that name uses a goddess, which is interesting because you have like Venus, the morning star, Venus, the evening star, right? Venus has much to do with the dawn in the Bible. I'm going to show you how just in a second connects directly into Lucifer. Before we get to that, the main point right here is the fact that that god seems to be a shapeshifter and basically androgynous, right, of both genders, especially within mythology, as you see that same type character be possibly male and female. And here we have it showing again through the names. So when we follow that forward, and I just did a little simple Google search, we're not going to dive deep into this because that'll be too long of an episode. Next episode, we're going to really focus on following these ties and connections down. So a Buddhist goddess of the dawn, because she drives with the darkness of the night as well as the spiritual darkness caused by ignorance and fear. Found this interesting. That popped up. The goddess of the dawn in Greek mythology is Eos, and she was a daughter of the Titans, so way up there, firstborn. Titans, most likely, definitely Nephilim. So let's remember the goddess of the dawn and go to Isaiah 14, which is the chapter on Hallel ben Shahar, in the KJV and others known as Lucifer. Let's scroll down here. Isaiah 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, you who did weaken the nations? So Bible Hub here, we're going to right click, open that verse in a new tab, and then we're going to look at the Hebrew, as we love doing, as I love doing, and give you the strongest concordance number there. How you're fallen, and look at these words, Hallel. This is going to come up important as far as one of the children of Kashyapa that we're looking at, because a certain line of his children are known as the Shining Ones. Okay, so Hallel, the name for Lucifer out of the Hebrew is Hallel ben Shahar, Shining One, son of the dawn. And so we have the word for shining, shining one, morning star being Venus of the morning and the evening star. Then we have Ben, which is sun, okay, and then we have Shahar, which is a Sumerian or Mesopotamian goddess. I'll pull up a picture of the dawn, and I've done a couple episodes that have been interplaying into here to this entity, even in my Og research, King of Bashan, especially in the research of Lucifer. Obviously I did 2 episodes on that, but when we start to look at Shahar, okay, so it's a literal entity, and as we show, let me pull it up here, and as I pull it up here, follow with me. Okay, Ugaritic, Canaanite, okay, and as we see there on the right above my head, parents is El and Asherah, El of the Elohim, Okay, and an L really ties into Kronos. When you do from that line of research, really ties into Kronos and his son, Baal being Zeus. Okay, we have Shahar, dawn, the dawn. So we have Lucifer being called a shining one, son of the dawn, which is a goddess who has parents and children. So seemingly, maybe firstborn, first line Nephilim, second line, when you look at it from that way. Okay, so the mythologies are confusing because you'll see like they'll add parents, or this person will be that parents in this set, but over here it's switched around, so that does make it difficult. But the overarching theme is that we're showing that Hallel ben Shahar, Lucifer, ties in with this name Marichi, goddess of the dawn, but who's actually a male, who's the father supposedly of this Kashyapa character. All right, let's go ahead and start diving into his children here. The first one is going to be Aditi. Let's pull that up. All right, right off the bat, interesting. The Adityas are 12 in number. 12 is the number of the zodiac and consist of these gods, this god set here. When I first pulled it open, I saw this, right, which it refers, in Hinduism, they refer to a group of major solar deities, the offspring of the goddess Aditi. Okay, so zodiac and tied in with the sun. When you have 12 tied in with the sun, 12 entities tied with the sun, they're also called the Hore. Egypt kind of separated different aspects of Horus into the positions of the sun. So we have that tie in here. Looking again, another more of his children. So the reason we're looking at this is to show that this is like basically an angelic entity. That Kashyapa, the father of all these entities I'm now showing you, is possibly, and it's pointing to him being angelic because he has so many different types of strange children. Nagas is just one line. So Kashyapa had a son named Takshasa, who we're going to look at as possibly Cain having a tie into. We're trying to find the tie-in with Kashyapa and Cain because I know there is one. All right, I just feel it, and I'm seeing a lot of things pointing to it. But here we move on to the second group of children of Kashyapa. All right, the Rudras, and they make up, and they're associated with Lord Shiva, who's the destroyer, and they make up 11 of the 33 gods in the Vedic pantheon. So that's a very interesting number within that pantheon, an interesting number anyway. We see that within Freemasonry and the occult and so on. And they are also sometimes identified with the storm deities referred to as Maruts. So we know that Baal was a storm entity. We know that Zeus was a storm entity. In the research of these Nagas, many of them are known to control the weather, to control the water. That's their power realm. They seem to be like water elementals or have that length or have that tie. And we're going to see how this gentleman Kashyapa not only had the Nagas, but he had elementals as children. All right, so that's those two. And then we got Kadrus and Vasus, a group of deities associated with fire and light. And scrolling down, talking about their elemental gods. Okay, close that off. Symbolically, the 8 Vasus represent the elemental forces and processes of nature and the beings, namely earth, water, fire, air, light, weather, day, dawn, and pole star. So it just popped to my mind that in Galatians, I'll pull the verse up here for you. It's Galatians 3 or 4. I think 4. It speaks about the elementals, and in multiple spots in Galatians, it says you go back to your basic elements. When we look up that word, it's stoichion in the Greek, and that word is actually the elemental like deities, the elemental spirits, right, with these powers. And God is saying, now that I've taught you about myself and that I am the Most High God, and this is your realm of worship and it's due to me and not these other creatures, why would you go back to your beggarly elements? Well, it's saying, why would you go back to these worthless gods, right? These worthless gods called elementals are stoichion in the Greek. And that's these interesting guys right here, if you want to peek that out, also called Vasus. All right, going back to our next children set, we have the Daitas. And we go to them, and this is a group of monsters matching once again to stories of the Titans and such, stories like Typhon that match into Echidna and that match into the snake once again. We have Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakshashipu, and Mahabali. When you see like Yaksha and Rakshasa, Those are like basically Rephaim spirits. They're cannibal spirits. They're spirits that drive you crazy within the Indian religion, and these are like the main top dogs who are at the beginning before this age per se in the Indians. Okay, and they overran the earth and caused one of their gods to come down in an avatar to vanquish them, and he had to come down in a different avatar each time for them because they were so gigantic, which takes us back to stories of, you know, God and Leviathan, Zeus, and oh God, what was the name of the snake? The big monster he had to go against, Typhon, and maybe it was Tartarus. And then you have like Yam, the sea god versus, what was it, El, or was it Baal? So these stories just continuously match up, and then once again tying us into like that Titan level entity where they're big enough to destroy parts of or the earth. And so just coming back to that, so as you see, it's really developing into what I want to spend an entire episode on. So I think I'll wrap it up here, and I want to say thank you guys for watching. I hope you found it exciting. I hope you found it interesting. Give me your comments, your questions. Let me know if you have any interesting lines of research. Sorry for not being easily accessible. This week I started my job doing carpentry, and I'll throw some pictures up in some of my next videos to show what I'm doing at the end, if you guys are into that kind of thing. Putting in windows, reframing windows, doing fun stuff like that. And so I'm working out in the Florida sun, so I am coming home at 5 and I am beat tired. You know, I'm not having a lot of time to put into this, like 3 hours a night, outside all the errands I have to do. So just bear with me. It's my birthday weekend, so I'm going to the Keys. I won't have a video for you next week, but we will be focusing in on this subject right here where we left off at. We'll pick that back up. So I pray that your week is awesome. I pray that you come back, like, share, subscribe, watch more of my videos, because it's not me. My videos and these lines of research are literally coming together in a crazy way. And it's just by following God, it's just by chasing after this information, and it's just by being true to that, and being true to y'all, and being thankful for y'all watching and giving me inspiration. So I see a lot of the comments. I'm about to go and reply back to everyone from this past week, and I'm just thankful and blessed, and God is with me, and I pray God's with you. Until next time, God bless you. Peace be upon you. Peace.